Coming up on our newscast tonight. Typhoon Prapiroon was expected to make landfall on the Korean peninsula, but after passing Japan's Okinawa, the storm's trajectory got altered due to pressure changes in the atmosphere. But its influence has already caused major damage in various parts of the nation. Following his trip to Russia and an instance of flu last week, President Jaein is set to embark on another diplomatic schedule, this time to India and Singapore, two of the world's fastest-growing economies. During a press conference, Seoul's unification minister announces what's expected from the next interKorean summit, a sustainable framework for interKorean ties, as well as practical steps toward peace and prosperity. News Center begins now. It's 8 p.m. here in Korea, live from our studio in Seoul. This is Arirang News Center. Welcome to our program. I'm Daniel Cha. Typhoon Prapiroon was projected to make landfall on Korea's mainland today. Thankfully, that won't be the case with its course altered. Still, the nation is on full alert for possible damage from strong winds and heavy rain. Kim Mo-kyun has our top story.
The latest forecast showed Typhoon Prapiroon shifting direction and heading towards the East Sea. According to the Korean Meteorological Administration, though the season's 7th typhoon is not expected to hit mainland Korea, heavy rain and strong winds are still forecast in the southern parts of the country. As of 6 p.m. Monday, Prapiroon was headed north from Korea's southernmost island of Jeju at a speed of 24 km per hour. The National Weather Agency forecast the storm to pass by the coastal waters of Busan early Tuesday morning as it makes its way northeast. That means Korea will be spared a direct hit, but the nation remains on full alert. The storm has already caused some disruptions. As of 6 p.m. on Jeju, some 50 flights have been delayed and nearly 20 canceled. Earlier in the day, the government urged the public to stay alert and said that it will update residents until the storm weakens and dissipates in the East Sea. Prime Minister Lee Nak-yeon also addressed those concerns, saying the government is operating around-the-clock central headquarters for disaster and safety countermeasures. Kim Mo-kyun, Arirang News.
Last week, President Jaein has been out of the spotlight to rest and recuperate. It seems he has recovered from the flu as the Liberal leader is back at work. In a meeting with top aides, he urged government's efforts to successfully implement the mandatory reduction in working hours. Hwang Ho-jun has the highlights from that session.
The day after Korea reduced the maximum length of the work week from 68 hours to 52, President Moon once again urged the nation to break away from the practice of overworking, but this time he put it in personal terms.
과로사에서 벗어나야 한다고 늘 강조해 오다가 대통령이 과로로 탈이 났다는 그런 말까지 듣게 되었으니 민망하기도 합니다.
Monday's meeting with his aides was the first time the president had appeared in public since he returned from his 3-day state visit to Russia on June 24th. The top office disclosed last Wednesday that President Moon was recovering from a severe cold he caught while in Russia, and following the advice of his personal doctor, he canceled his entire schedule last week to get better. During the meeting, President Moon stressed that reducing work hours is something that has to be done and that it may even create more jobs, noting that South Koreans put in 300 hours a year more than the average person in other OECD countries.
무엇보다 중요한 것은 과로로 인한 과로사와 산업재해를 획기적으로 줄이고 졸음운전을 방지하여 귀중한 국민의 생명과 노동자의 안전권을 보장하는 그런 근본 대책이라는 점입니다. 세계 어느 나라를 둘러봐도 우리 정도 수준을 갖춘 나라 가운데 우리처럼 장시간 노동에 시달리는 나라는 없습니다.
The president also said reducing work hours will improve companies' competitiveness and productivity, citing research done by the National Assembly Budget Office, which found that a 1% cut in weekly working hours would lead to a 0.79% increase in labor productivity. Underscoring that the new work-hour limit will at first only apply to companies with 300-plus employees and the fact there is a 6-month grace period, President Moon asked for the combined efforts of the government, the private sector, and the people to implement the new system smoothly. Hwang Ho-jun, Arirang News.
Employees and companies in the nation are about to experience another major change at work. Maximum working hours per week is reduced to 52, a system that's designed to improve quality of life. Jong-un sheds light on the benefits as well as possible repercussions.
The South Korean government is expected to bring a change to Korea's work-life balance as the country kicks off its 52-hour maximum workweek system starting from July 1st. The new change, effective for businesses with more than 300 employees, limits Korean workers to work less than 52 hours per week, down from the previous 68-hour system. The new 12 hours of extra overtime will now include the previous 16-hour slot that was used for weekends or public holidays. To enforce the system, the government will fine business owners who do not follow the new rules. And according to an expert, the reduced working hours will bring a significant change to the public's health.
Many critical diseases such as cardiovascular disease, which threaten the health of general workers, are due to long working hours. So I think the 52 working hour limit will be a dramatic change in improving the health of workers.
While many big businesses, which have been bracing for the system for the past few months by hiring new workers and overhauling their working hour system, are expected to adopt to the new system without much of a hitch, the problem lies with small and medium-sized companies, as they have been facing a variety of difficulties, including trouble hiring new workers and adopting flexible hours to meet employees' particular needs. Given the circumstances, the government is implementing a 6-month grace period for companies to slowly adapt to the change. Also, for a smooth transition across the whole South Korean labor market, the government has given a bit more time for smaller firms to implement the rules. Companies with 50 to 300 workers should implement the regulations starting January 2020, and those with 5 to 50 employees should do so by July 2021. But some have voiced concern about possible side effects, saying the new regulations could force some people to look for part-time jobs to supplement their reduced earnings due to the shorter amount of available overtime work.
On the labor side, they may get a substantial cut in pay because by Korean law, you get 50% overtime extra pay when you're working beyond 40 hours a week, and 50 to 100% extra pay when you're working overtime during the weekend. When you cut your working hours from 68 hours to 52 hours, that you're cutting basically the most lucrative time of your work week. So a lot of workers are going to get their pay cut, and a lot of labor does not like that.
As the system has just been adopted, there will inevitably be some confusion and issues to iron out. So the government needs to work closely with workers and employers to mitigate any adverse effects of the policy in the coming years. Jong-un, Arirang News.
More and more women are becoming active contributors of the nation's workforce. Over 50% of them are employed, with a growing number of mothers returning to work. However, according to our Kim Hye-sung, there still lies a big wage gap between men and women.
Data from Statistics Korea show women's average monthly wages came to about $2,050 last year, up 4.3% from the year before. Still, that's only 2/3 of what was earned by Korean men, who made on average about $3,050 a month. In 2013, Korean women earned 68 cents on the dollar compared to men. That fell to around 66 cents in 2015 and then went up slightly in 2016 and 2017. Statistics Korea attributed the gender pay gap to women working irregular jobs and to interruptions to their careers caused by marriage, childbirth, and child rearing. In August 2017, 3.6 million women, or 4 out of 10 women in the labor force, were employed on a temporary basis. This is much higher than the rate for men, of whom 26% are irregular workers. At the same time, the average continuous working years for women was 4.7 years, 2.5 years shorter than that for men. Yet data show the areas women work in have become more diverse. For the first time last year, women accounted for more than half of the public servants employed by Korea's Interior Ministry. The ratio of women in law and medicine also went up compared to the previous year, coming to 26%, 25.4% respectively. Kim Hye-sung, Arirang News.
President Moon Jae-in will take flight again, this time to the Southeast and South Asian region. The Liberal leader's state visit to Singapore and India comes in a matter of weeks since returning from Russia. Our chief Chongwon correspondent Moon Gun-young fills us in on what's planned for this diplomacy trip.
Less than 3 weeks after championing his new northern policy in Russia late last month, South Korean President Moon Jae-in will be in Southeast and Southern Asia this weekend, first with his eyes set on the world's fastest growing major economy.
President Moon Jae-in will make state visits to India and Singapore from July 8th through the 13th for 6 days and 5 nights.
At the invitation of Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi, the South Korean leader will be in India from the 8th through the 11th, during which he'll meet with Indian President Ram Nath Kovind and hold a bilateral summit with Prime Minister Modi to strengthen the two countries' special strategic partnership and discuss ways to expand their future-oriented relationship.
South Korea and India mark 45 years of diplomatic relations this year. Our two countries have developed and continue to develop key partnerships not only in economic relations but also in our pursuit of peace and prosperity on the Korean Peninsula and the international community.
The latter half of his 6-day South Asia tour will take President Moon to South Korea's second biggest trading partner among the ASEAN, Singapore. There, at the invitation of the President of Singapore, Halima Yacob, he will meet with both the Singaporean President and Prime Minister Lee Hsien Loong. Mr. Moon is also scheduled to deliver a speech to leaders from Singapore's politics, business, government, academia, and media.
Dubbed the Singapore Lecture, the President plans to detail his vision and policy direction for denuclearization and permanent peace establishment on the Korean Peninsula, as well as the new Southern Policy, which aims to elevate our government's cooperation with the ASEAN to a whole new level.
The South Korean president's state visits to these two countries are significant in that his trip to India will mark the first time for the president to visit the South Asian region as president and Singapore as the chair of the ASEAN this year. Now, analysts believe the state visits will provide an opportunity for South Korea to propel forward its new Southern policy in full swing and also provide an opportunity for President Moon to seek consensus for his peace agenda on the Korean Peninsula and expand its diplomatic horizon. Moon Gun-young, Arirang News, the Blue House.
The two Koreas will hold another summit this fall as stipulated in their agreement from the previous session. That's according to the nation's unification minister, who told reporters the focus this time will be on taking bigger steps to achieve peace and prosperity on the peninsula. Also stressed was the fact that Pyongyang is more determined than ever on economic cooperation. Woo Jung-hee shares with us his remarks.
A sustainable framework for inter-Korean relations and practical steps towards peace and prosperity on the Korean Peninsula. That's what South Korea hopes to achieve through its next summit talks with North Korea in the fall, according to Seoul's unification minister Do Myung-gyun, who spoke to reporters on Monday.
At summit talks in the fall, we hope to reach a stage where we could take earnest and concrete steps for peace and prosperity on the Korean Peninsula. We should be thoroughly prepared on a comprehensive level so that inter-Korean relations become institutionalized and therefore sustainable.
Whether that means that economic cooperation between Seoul and Pyongyang can start in the fall, the Unification Ministry couldn't say for sure because that depends on whether international sanctions on North Korea are lifted. But an unnamed high-level official stressed that North Korea is firm and more willing than ever to pursue economic development, with leader Kim Jong-un himself feeling the need to adopt new and innovative technology. North Korea has also been proactive in discussing cooperation with South Korea on railways, roads, and forestation, even suggesting at last week's talks doing things a bit more quickly and taking more tangible steps. Based on these, the official said Seoul hopes in the future to also put on the table President Moon Jae-in's new economic map, which aims to connect and develop economic belts with North Korea. Meanwhile, Seoul's unification minister Do Myung-gyun is set to make a 4-day visit to North Korea starting Tuesday, leading a group of 100 South Koreans for inter-Korean basketball games later in the week. It's expected he could meet various figures in Pyongyang, including Kim Jong-un. This will be the first time he's been to the north in 11 years since November 2007. Woo Jung-hee, Arirang News.
Kim Jong-un visited a number of sites in Sindogun and Siniju areas near the North Korean border with China. This follows his visit to Beijing in June, where the regime's leader toured a number of major industrial facilities. For more on the significance of the inspections, we turn to our Kan Young-woo.
North Korean leader Kim Jong-un made his first public appearances after his trip to Beijing. He visited Sindogun County and Siniju in North Korea's northwestern Pyeonganbuk-do province near the border with China. According to the North state-run Korean Central News Agency, Kim looked around a large-scale reed farm in Sindogun County and made on-site inspections of 2 textile plants and a cosmetics factory in Siniju. It's reported that Kim expressed dissatisfaction about the plants and the workers. He said that they're not living up to Siniju's quote-unquote proud tradition and urged them to increase productivity. His constant message in all 3 places he visited was modernization.
So mass production is what North Korea considers as modernization, but you need to first check the facilities of old factories in North Korea to modernize. In other words, Kim Jong-un is going to put all-out efforts into economic development.
There is also speculation that Kim Jong-un's visit can be interpreted as a move aimed at developing economic ties with China, as his recent on-site inspections follow his visit to Beijing in June, and these areas all share borders with China. His tour included a stop at Hwanggeunpyeong, an island where the northern China had agreed to develop a special economic zone back in 2011, before the project was stalled following the execution of Kim's uncle Chang Song-taek in 2013. China has been implementing the United Nations sanctions on North Korea, but after the North Korea-US summit and Kim's visit to China, Beijing recently raised the need to ease sanctions. Kan Young-woo, Arirang News.
America's top diplomat is expected to pay a visit to Pyongyang this week. Ahead of his trip, working-level officials from the 2 sides reportedly met at the inter-Korean border over the weekend. Lee Ji-won zooms in on what they may have discussed.
It seems as though talks to work out the process of North Korea's denuclearization have kicked off. A senior U.S. State Department official on Sunday confirmed that U.S. Ambassador to the Philippines and former nuclear negotiator Sung Kim and North Korea's Vice Foreign Minister Choi Sun-hee met again on Sunday at the truce village of Panmunjom on the inter-Korean border. This comes 19 days after the Pyongyang-Washington summit was held last month and is the first face-to-face meeting between the 2 sides since Singapore. While not much is known about the details, the South Korean daily Joseonilbo reports that the 2 exchanged views on the current situation for about an hour. And with U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo expected to visit Pyongyang this week, Sunday's meeting is thought to have covered the agenda for Pompeo's visit, mainly North Korea's denuclearization. Ambassador Kim and Choi were at the forefront of negotiations between Pyongyang and Washington in the lead-up to the Singapore summit. The 2 held a series of pre-summit meetings in Panmunjom and continued their talks in Singapore right up until the first meeting between North Korean leader Kim Jong-un and U.S. President Donald Trump. An expert on North Korea expects these follow-up talks to center around ways to carry out North Korea's denuclearization in a speedy manner.
The specific timeline and plan can be made once the U.S. has an understanding of the size of North Korea's nuclear weapons program. So to start off, the U.S. is likely to first require North Korea to submit a list of the nuclear programs, which will be followed by the verification of the list, possibly by forming an international consortium centered around the U.S.
The experts said once the 2 sides settle on the speed and the intensity of the denuclearization steps, Washington can then work on easing its economic sanctions on North Korea. He also added that the shutdown of the large missile engine test site in Dongchangli and the repatriation of the remains of some 200 American soldiers are also expected to be discussed at Pompeo's upcoming visit to the north. Lee Ji-won, Arirang News.
Elsewhere around the world, an older, possibly wiser leader is chosen by the people of Mexico fed up with corruption. Andres Manuel Lopez Obrador beat his 2 main rivals in the official quick count from a national sampling of ballots. Hong Yu gets us better acquainted with the man set to become the country's first left-wing president in almost a century.
After 89 years of rule, Mexico's conservative PRI party is expected to relinquish the presidency to left-wing politician from the PT party, Andres Manuel Lopez Obrador. An official quick count from a national sampling of ballots showed about 53% of the votes cast went to Lopez Obrador. After running for president twice in the past, he finally won a resounding victory Sunday night in Mexico's presidential election. This marks the first time that a left-wing candidate will become president of Mexico since the country started transitioning to democracy. One local polling agency, Parametria, expects Obrador to take 53 to 59% of the votes, and another local poll, Consulta Mitofsky, expects 43 to 49% of votes to go to Obrador. His main opponent, Ricardo Anaya, a moderate candidate, is expected to take 19 to 25% of the votes. Anaya and ruling party candidate Jose Antonio Miade, who came third in the polls, accepted their defeat and offered their congratulations. The shift of political power from the conservatives to liberals comes after Mexicans' disappointment over corruption, violence, and inequality. Obrador was the former mayor of Mexico City, but his promises to put an end to corruption, establish a Ministry of Public Safety, and renegotiate NAFTA helped him earn the people's vote. He emphasized honest poverty and sharing by declaring that he will reduce his presidential salary to half its normal amount and offering to live in his own house instead of presidential palace. U.S. President Donald Trump tweeted his congratulations to Lopez Obrador on Sunday night, saying, "I look very much forward to working with him. There is much to be done that will benefit both the United States and Mexico." A total of 3,400 positions were contested, and 89 million people voted. The new president is to be inaugurated on December 1st. Hong Yu, Arirang News.
Turning to some World Cup action now, Sunday's big matches went down to the wire. Penalties decided both ties. Intriguingly, even after scoring an own goal, Russia, perhaps energized by the home crowd to pull off a miracle, was able to defeat one of the hot favorites in the game. Let's check out the excitements of the Sweet 16 courtesy of our Lee Seung-jae.
Sunday's action kicked off with the host nation Russia taking on Spain in Moscow. With the winner advancing to the quarterfinals, Russia got off to a terrible start as Sergei Ignatievich's own goal in the 12th minute gave Spain the early 1-0 lead. But in the 41st minute, Artem Dzyuba, taking the spot kick after Gerard Piqué's handball inside the box, converts it and levels the match at 1-1. Both nations go scoreless in the second half and for the full 30 minutes of the extra time as this match goes into penalties. Working off the cheering home crowd, Russia goes flawless, converting 4 of 4, while Spain misses the third and 5th spot kick as Russia pulls off a huge upset, winning the shootout 4-3. Later in the day, it was the turn of Croatia and Denmark in Nizhny Novgorod. There was action right from the kickoff. Matthias Jorgensen, in the first minute of the match, found his left foot shot in the back of the net for an early 1-0 lead for Denmark. But Mario Mandzukic answers back 3 minutes later as Croatia levels the match at 1 apiece. A scoreless second half, and Croatia has a chance to win it 26 minutes into the extra time after a penalty is called. Luka Modric looking to be the hero in this match. Instead, it's Danish goalkeeper Kasper Schmeichel who saves the spot kick as the two teams head for the second penalty shootout of the day. Both teams taking 5 shots each. It's a battle of the goalkeepers, but it's Daniel Subasic who saves 3 of 5 shots with Ivan Rakitic converting the final shot for Croatia. The result means Croatia will take on Russia in the quarterfinals. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
Time to turn to Michelle back at the Weather Center for the updates you need. Michelle, the monsoon season had just started and a typhoon joins the scene. How serious is the forecast now? What can we expect in the upcoming days?
Well, Daniel, according to the latest readings, the forecast is going to worsen and the monsoon rain is expected to dissipate after midnight. But the influence of the Typhoon Prapiroon will affect Jeju Island and the southern provinces with more rain and strong winds. Now, weather conditions will be critical between tonight and Tuesday morning, and it won't be until Wednesday when we'll see better conditions. Currently, typhoon alerts have been issued in the eastern and the southern regions, and while the other parts of the country could also be issued with similar alerts tomorrow. And until tomorrow, most regions are expected to see between 50 and 100 millimeters of precipitation, while the southern and the eastern coast will be soaking up more than 150 millimeters of rain. And during the day tomorrow, Seoul and some places will be cloudy, but there will be sporadic showers also. And the morning lows will mostly be lingering around 23 or 24 degrees Celsius, and Seoul beginning the day at 23 degrees. And with a 10-degree jump during the day, Seoul will reach up to 32, Gwangju 30, and Busan is a few notches lower at 26 degrees. I'll leave you with the weather conditions around the world.
This is where we bid you good day or good night, depending on your time zone. As always, thank you for staying with us.